Good afternoon, family, friends. If there are also frenemies here, we welcome you as well. My name is Lester Kiewit, and thank you so much for joining us this now afternoon. And that's why we've now cracked open these glasses and these cans of some lovely, tasty beverage here, because it is now officially after 12 o'clock. My first apologies is for my voice. It's been a very, very busy weekend in Cape Town for some reason. I was at a Peppa Pig concert on Friday night, so screaming with 300 other parents and children. So I think that is why it's got absolutely nothing to do with a small case of a rugby game yesterday here in Cape Town. But please, can I ask you just to allow just a short moment of reflection? I think it is important that we pay tribute to the life of James Matthews, who through his art, his contribution to our culture, through his resistance and protest, through poems and prose, I just feel we should pay a short moment in tribute. And one of my favorite poems of James Matthews, and afterwards we'll just break for a short moment of silence in his honor. And this is Think of Me Sometime by James Matthews. Think of me sometime as you rise at dawn, the day like your heart, filled with dreams and hopes that will come true while I am filled with doubt. Think of me sometime as you walk unshackled and your movement takes you into shaded walks and pleasant places, horizons stretched beyond the eye while I am confined. Think of me sometime as you fill your cup with wine and sing your song, finding merriment in your meaning, with friendship all around while my cup is dry. Think of me sometime as you lay enfolded in your lover's arms, enchanted by the music of hearts beating in time while I make love to myself. Think of me sometime as you look at your son at play with his sister around their mother's feet, a scene of family complete while I have fathered none. Think of me sometime as you enjoy life and watch flowers bloom to grow and give delight, life as light as air, while life for me has died. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our discussion here this afternoon, talking about the past and present. When I got the brief on what is past and present, what is writing mothers and fathers, what is the process of family joy and family trauma that brings us to where we are today. And I'm in a very interesting space in my life at the moment. I'm the father of young children. I am the son of parents who are growing older. As I talk to my parents, they reveal more secrets of their past, family stories that I have not heard, and therefore I then get to learn about the psychology of my family and where it has brought me. At the same time, I live in a reality with two young children where I think of a local politics, a precarious geopolitics. I worry that by 2050, will we suffer a systems collapse, which makes me think, is it any worthwhile for my children to have any thoughts that I am having now? It's in fact a blessing to have these very, very deep and serious conversations with oneself on the impact on your family and your impact on others. So I'm in a phase where I've been reading a lot, and this poem by Philip Larkin touches me quite deeply in how I rationalize what I've just explained to you, and talking about families, the joys and the traumas that are passed on to us, and we then pass that on to others. And this is called This Be the Verse by Philip Larkin. They fuck you up, your mom and dad. They may not mean to, but they do. They fill you with the faults they had and add some extra just for you. But they were fucked up in their turn by fools in old-style hats and coats who half the time were soppy stern and one half at another's throats, man hands on misery to man. It deepens like a coastal shelf. Get out as early as you can. Don't have any kids yourself. This be the verse by Philip Larkin. I'm not as serious as Philip Larkin, but I thought it would be a very, very interesting place to start when we talk about the past and the present and writing families with Charmaine Africa, with Thobeka, Yose, and of course with Alistair, Mackay, the authors of our wonderful books that we have here this morning. Charmaine, Thobeka, and Alistair, I've asked you to give your thoughts on this poem by Philip Larkin that I just read out and how it maybe stirs or triggers maybe a thought in you. Charmaine, your thoughts on when I read Philip Larkin, this be the verse. Our parents were fucked up and therefore they have fucked us up, and if we have children, we will fuck them up as well. Your thoughts?
Okay, first of all, I don't agree with him saying you mustn't have kids. He's an idiot for saying that. But on the other hand, our parents, they just moved on. They never made changes. You know what I'm saying? They were, the way they grew up, they just carried that forward. They never changed with the times, and the times are changing. And that is the reason why you still get, like he's saying, I would like to use this word, fucked up households. You know? That's why you still get it. You call it it's a generational curse. It gets being carried from the one generation to the other. And if I can tell him something, I would say, you stop that curse.
Thobeka, let's talk about generational curses. Your thoughts on Philip Larkin there?
A trigger for me, because I agree that mom and dad fucked us up as kids, as their children. But I also understand that they didn't mean to. That's where I draw comfort from, also in my journey as a parent as well. I now know that if I have fucked up Lwetu, or if I am going to fuck her up in future, it's not my fault. And I can only hope and pray that I will not be blamed, because there is no manual for being a parent. Yeah.
Alistair?
I love that poem, actually. I think it's quite funny and pretty apt. I do think we all have baggage from our childhoods. I think no one gets out of childhood without scars and misunderstandings and pain. But I agree, I don't think, some parents aren't even trying to be good parents, but I think even parents who are trying to be good parents can inflict damage on their kids. And part of the story in this book is the character trying to navigate his own sort of realizing that and processing some of his baggage and figuring out how he feels about his childhood. But I don't think that the only solution is to not have children. I think that we're all talking about mental health much more than we used to. I think there are ways in which my generation, and hopefully even younger generations even more so, we're consciously trying to break those chains of intergenerational trauma. We're trying to figure out how not to damage our kids in the ways that maybe we were damaged. And because the conversations are in the open more than they used to be, I think it's easier to navigate that. So I feel quite hopeful about it not just perpetuating down the generations forever.
So let me start then with you about how we talk about the child. The narrator struggles with the identity, especially in terms of masculinity and the sense of belonging. How do you approach the challenge of conveying the concepts, the complex emotions, and how do you believe these struggles reflect on broader issues in society, the narrator and the child?
So the narrator, the start of this book is a man and his husband moving back to Cape Town to adopt a baby, and the main character's just had a mental breakdown, and I think confronting the idea of fatherhood makes him examine the ways in which he is maybe likely to pass on some of this stuff to the next generation. So he's trying really hard to figure out how to heal himself so that he can not damage a future child. And he struggles particularly with the idea of maybe having a male child, because there's a lot of queer stuff in the book as well, and around this particular damage of growing up queer in South Africa in the 80s and 90s. And so he's trying to find models and ways of teaching a little boy how to be loving and accepting and caring while also being strong, trying to model alternative masculinities maybe.
Thobeka, I sense quite the deep gravity when I asked you to reflect on this poem, and your book, a memoir, delves very deeply into your own personal tragedy of a young wife losing a husband at a very, very young age, but also the impact of growing up in your mother's home when she experienced violence. How does those two aspects of your mother's story, but also your story and losing your husband at a very young age, how does that initially shape your understanding of love, relationships? What does a loving marriage mean? And what happens when a loving marriage ends abruptly?
Yeah, I grew up in a very unsafe space. Because my father was an alcoholic, and I don't want to say maybe he was the cause of my mom getting sick mentally, but the environment, in my understanding, drove my mom to a mental institution. I think my love for him doesn't allow me to say he is the reason, but he could be. I was lucky enough to be removed from that environment, which I saw so clearly as a 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old. I knew that it was not safe, even though the mom next door or the auntie across the street is also getting the beatings and all kinds of abuse. But I knew it was wrong. I knew it was not normal. And when I was 9, I was then removed. I got a clear understanding when I stayed with my uncle and aunt, and I saw how my uncle treated my aunt, and I knew this is not what love should look like. This is a safe space. For me, I felt loved and appreciated and protected. And I think I would say my late husband was lucky to meet me when at least I was on my journey, healing journey, because now I knew that I knew the love language, what love looks like. And then when I got married, I saw a bit of my father in my husband. I think you get attracted to, even if you don't want to. There was an element of wanting to be controlling. There was alcohol, but it was not abused. But because I come from a background of abuse and violence, I would be scared when he was drinking. I would worry that, maybe when he is drunk, he is going to do this. But I commend him because he also came from a family where his father was an alcohol abuser. But he tried his best to be a better man, and that helped us to shape our life, and also gave me a nest to just breathe, because childhood had been difficult, and teenagehood had also had its challenges. But in the end, it was the space that I dreamed of, at least, and it helped me to be a better person.
Charmaine, one of people who are my heroes, of course, firefighters, nurses, teachers, but my heroes are mothers and fathers and caregivers who get up at the crack of dawn, before the crack of dawn, and return home after it is dark. It is the factory workers and parents who are security guards who often need to rely on others to make sure that the children are ready for school. And that's how Amma starts. It starts with you being taken to school, your first day of school by your grandma. But talk to me about just your thoughts on so many parents on there for the special moments, sometimes a grumpy moment for a young girl going to her first day of school. But talk to me about that opening of your book, about how Oma Bea took you to school for the first day and how that made you feel that your parents were working, had to leave home before dawn, returned late at night. Just take me through that process with you.
Okay. So my first day of school, my mother went to work, my father went to work, and there was my grandma. She must now take me to school. But my grandma was a very a strict woman, I would say. She didn't always get away with us, but she was strict. She laid her rules down and you go according to that. Unlike my mother and my father, who, you know, if it was my mother on that very first day and I begged her not to go to school, school is not, I don't want to do school, she would have said, okay, come we do it next year. My father would have said, school, what is school? He would have been drunk, he would say, you don't need school, you're clever enough. Stuff like that. But my grandmother insisted, you will have to go to school because your father, he just plain loves it when a child has got education. And I fought with her that morning and I tried to run away and all that, blah, blah, blah. But she reminded me that she's in charge and she's going to hit me with my, I must tell you this. I had my first, you call it a case that you take to school, this thingy-majig. You get that brown, small brown, nice ones for grade. Okay, I'm from the sub-A era. That small one, but mine was a big one. My grandma decided to just empty all the underwear and put my bread in that thing, that big thing. I had to go. And that is why first day of school was so scary for me. It was scary because I had this awkward case, this big one that made me look like a traveler. I had this horrible dress. I didn't look like the other children. So I know, if my mother was there, she would have said, we leave it till next year. I know my father would have said, you're clever enough, you don't need this. Stuff like that. And that is why I was cut up. I was mad. I promised myself I'm never going to speak to this older lady again. Never in my life. But yeah, I had to. So, So my mother went to work. She left at 5 in the morning and she came back at, say, 7 at night. And in winter times, it's very dark already. It's dark. But I still made sure she came back home safe because I went to go stand there by the station and wait on her to come back, you know. And why did I do it? At home it wasn't all clear cut. My father will come, he was alcoholic. And he would come home, I don't know if he was an alcoholic or just, I don't know, but something like that. He drank every day. And he would come home and make a yellow thing about everything and nothing. And you don't get time to speak to your mother. This is the one that you want to speak to, tell her about the day. So you can't do it at home, so you get at the station. Doesn't matter how late it is. And you can tell your story walking from the station home. Because when we get home, my father will accuse my mother, who's been working her ass off all day, that she's been having a grand time with all the men. Mm? But she was working. She was really working hard, and he insisted. He would even tell her that he can smell she was a busy woman. Stuff like that. And that is how we grew up. That is how I grew up and my 8 other siblings. We grew up like that. It was just wine and accusations. And the one thing he didn't do, he wasn't physical with her. He wasn't physical with any of us. Because my brothers and sisters would have physicaled him back. That is how they were. I always thought we were a normal family until one day I discovered, no. You're very dysfunctional. You're pretty much abnormal. but we survived. We went through that lot. And that is how my book starts. And that is the reason why my grandma had to take me, and then my grandma was taken away from us. No, she wasn't taken away from us at first. She decided, I had enough of this. I can't live like this. I've got another son. I'm going to stay with him. Now, that son, he didn't drink, but he gambled and was stingy. And she had a better life with us, you know, if there was earplugs at that time. She would have had a better life, but she had to live through all this. So, and then afterwards she died, and there we were stranded again with this thingy of my father being my father. I'll get a chance to tell him more about him. Thank you.
Short while. We have 2 memoir writers between Thobeka and Charmaine, but Alistair, you told me early in the week in our interview with you, saying that there's this concept of autofiction. It's how writers of novels try to bring in a lot of their own personal story and crafting in the world. Now, in The Child, the relationship between the narrator and the father, his father, is central to this particular story. How does this relationship with unresolved trauma, I don't want you to get maybe too intricate into your personal life, but how much in this genre of autofiction plays into developing a world in The Child?
So firstly, I have huge admiration for memoir writers, so you guys are incredible. I did actually start writing this as a memoir. The early drafts were me trying to process a lot of stuff that happened to me in my childhood, and was also precipitated by my father passing away, and I had a bit of a breakdown after that. So a lot of my own stuff went into the book, but I chose to make it fiction just so that I had a bit of distance from it, so that I could feel not quite so vulnerable and not quite so exposed in some of the stuff that I explored, because I wanted to really lean into some of the darker sides of mental health issues and how we feel about certain aspects about ourselves, and to really try and mine our shadow side. And so it helped for me to make it a novel and to add lots of stuff into the book that didn't happen to me and that is made up and fictionalized, and storylines that didn't happen, to sort of throw people off the scent, I suppose. Because in a way that then frees me up to write about some very personal things, but in a way in which you can't say, oh, that's definitely from his life. The very personal seeming thing could just be my thoughts on an issue which is not relevant to me. But yeah, I mean, I don't mind saying my father's death had a very big effect on my life, and in a way that was quite surprising to me, since I know we're talking about fathers here, but because we had quite a difficult relationship, and so you kind of think, oh, well, if you have a very difficult relationship, then maybe the death won't affect you in such a big way, but I think maybe the opposite is true. If there's a whole lot of unresolved stuff there that you never got to work through, then that really fucks you up.
Thobeka, let's talk a little bit about following the death of your husband. You were 30 years old and now left to head a household with the normal state of an economy, of society, of just general domestic issues that would be very, very difficult to raise a family by yourself. But also in your book you talk about the coming out firstly of your child via social media, which you did not know about, but later the ongoing conversation with your child who says, Mom, I do not feel like a boy. that I, in fact, feel trapped. Tell me about going through that process alone as a parent in this very, very important transition now for your daughter.
Yeah, do we have the whole day? I will, before I get into your question, what you just said about the passing of your father, that was painful, surprisingly, because the relationship wasn't that good. In my case, I am not ashamed to say I felt relieved. I was young, it was in the 80s when the news came, because I had already moved from my home. I was already living with my aunt and uncle. And when the news came in the morning, it was a Saturday morning, and on Saturdays we were allowed to sleep in for as long as we want. So the messenger came while we were still sleeping and told me, it was my younger sister who came and told me, even that shows that we are messed up. You cannot be sending a child to deliver such message. And I was like, okay, that's what I said. And then I turned around and covered myself with a blanket. And I was, in my heart, I was like, yo, at least my mom is not going to be beat up anymore. Nobody will ever touch her from now on. Moving to your question, Lester, I lost my husband at the age of 30, and I was unemployed. I thought I would be just a housewife, and in my mind I thought we could afford everything. We had our small little apartment in Pretoria. Everything was good. I was happy, and then he passed on, and I had to go through a lot of trauma, a lot of traditional stuff, things that women do to you in the name of tradition. It's another book. There are things that are done to us black women in our communities by older women who do not even talk to us about them. I still get very emotional when I think about the morning when they cut my hair. It's an issue for me. You don't touch my hair without my permission, and they cut it and they bent it. I later found out that that action symbolized the start of a new life. But I wish somebody had told me why they were taking me to the river to wash so I can wash with cold water. And I had been recently out of hospital, and I had an operation. I had just gotten an ovary removed, and I had to walk a distance to a river in the name of tradition. I don't like that, and I'm going to make noise about it until it changes. It has to change. None of those women at least said, at least let's warm up the water, carry it to the river. If this has to happen in the river, at least carry the warm water to the river so I can, because only last week I was in hospital. So why would you do that to a 30-year-old? Expect them to take bath in a cold bath after just burying her husband the previous day. So our life has been full of ups and downs. The first thing I did was to move to Cape Town to be with my family, so I can get my life together, take myself to school, because I remember I was a housewife, enjoying being a housewife, taking walks to the park with my child, doing all the leisure things that people do, meeting friends for coffee during the day. I loved that life until the only person who was a provider was gone, and I had to come to Cape Town, so at least my mom and my sister can be able, and my friends that I made here in Cape Town. I didn't have friends in Cape Town before I moved to Cape Town. Friends that I met in church or any other social gathering, they helped me to raise my child, and also to live and forget about my pain. There was a time that I would go to work on Monday to Friday, and then on Saturday go to school, and then on Sunday go to a computer course, because now I did not even know how to touch the screen. So I had to learn, I had to build myself so I can be self-sufficient, and also tried to be a present mom, which was difficult because you have to provide.
So then where do you learn how to deal with a child who says, I currently am feeling uncomfortable in the body and the gender that I was assigned to at birth? I feel I am different. How do you then, you can go to a computer class to learn how to deal with computers, but how do you teach yourself to deal with a child who feels, well, I feel different, particularly being alone?
It was difficult. I don't want to lie. It was very, very difficult. Remember, I'm a black woman. There are expectations when you marry into a family. You are there to grow the family. You have to give birth to a son who will also have children, so that the family name grows. Now I come and have this son. Yay for me! Everyone is happy. And then at 16, this son now says, actually, I am gay, and I love other boys. Already, he thought he was in love with a boy who was in tertiary while he was in high school. So he came out on Facebook posting pictures of himself and this boy, and then I had to find out. Because my sister-in-law made a phone call to tell me to go and look for what my child has posted on Facebook, because she cannot even be saying it. And what she wants me to know is that her family can never be dragged into such. And also I must tell my son that she is very disappointed in him. So out of all the frustration, and I had to get strong. I had to forget about my own feelings, because now my only child is now being judged and also discriminated, and the family wants nothing to do with him. So the pity party that I hosted had to just end, because I needed to be there for my child. I needed to tell him. He was still a him at the time, a he. I had to tell him that I don't know the journey. I gave birth to a boy, and now you are telling me this. And I don't know how to journey with you, but what I can tell you is that I love you, and we will start it from there. You are my child, and for me, it's not important who you choose to love. Until one Saturday evening where she invited me to dinner at Camps Bay, and that was the first time I saw her in a dress, and I was shocked. The dinner was for us now to connect as girls, and I was shocked, and I could not even look at her. I drank so much wine before because I was like, because I don't want to project this, what I'm feeling inside. So I thought drinking wine would loosen me up. So it was difficult, but we are in a beautiful journey. It's not easy, and but it's beautiful. It's messy. Sometimes it's ugly because she is dealing with a lot of emotions, and there are things that I don't agree with, and she also suffers from depression and anxiety, and when that the episodes happen, she will just close doors, and I wouldn't be able to go through, and it would be frustrating for me because I'm a control freak, and also I'm a mom. I also want to be there. I want to sit with my child when she is in pain or frustrated or had suffered an attack in a transphobic attack in an event or wherever. So there are things that I wish she was still young, so I can be able to be that, put her in that cocoon. But I also understand that it's okay. This is life. This is growth. I just need to remind her that I'm here and I'm not going anywhere, and I love her. And for me, who she loves and now she has breasts because she's on hormones. She is beautiful.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Charmaine, it was very much later into my life, as I said, now having conversations with my older parents. And now we have words, the language to call what Granddaddy Donald may have been going through, why Auntie so-and-so is the way she is. What was the term, the language, the concepts for mental health in your family, your large, diverse family where there's often cultural conflicts, where you have, you mentioned alcohol's part of that psychology, hardworking parents who themselves, it's also a punishment for them to get up early, return late at night. What was the language for what we now call mental health awareness now? What was the language used in Bishop Lavis?
I don't think there was a specific language. What I can tell you will shock all these people, so I'm not going to say it. So, I don't know how to say this, but this mental illness thing that we know of now, we know of the depression also, we know of the anxiety, we know of this, that, and the other, all these big words. But back then, there weren't, like words for it. And you act out, or like my father, he'll do his thing, or my brother, he'll do his thing. Today, I know what was wrong with him and what is still wrong with my brother. But back then, we would have said, because we're in Afrikaans, die dinge sal weer befok. Just like that. End of story. No, making it look nice or sound nice or anything. Die dinge sal vanaand al weer befok. Something like that. So, if we knew then what we know now, things could have taken a different turn, Things could have been solved. And that is where that your poem comes in, where they say, my grandparents were fucked up, my parents were fucked up, but that is what's happening. You bring the one fucked up down to the other fucked up, and there's no answers to that. There is no explanation to that. The only people you could go see is if things are really fucked up now, you run to the police station and say, please, we got domestic violence. Can you just lock up this guy for one night and all that, blah, blah. Stuff like that. It was treated like that. You know, that is what we had. You go to the social worker and he said, my son's doing this, blah, 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 and why husband is doing this, and they'll tell you, your son needs a good hiding. And you remember, your husband is still the head of the house. You know, that is the answers you got. It's like the one woman asked me, so didn't you have any welfare workers that could have helped you and all that, blah, blah. My mother's been there. She did all this, you know. And nothing happened. There was no, like also like this, no, there was no, it was like, there was no help out there. There was nothing that no one could do and wanted to do, even if they could do it at that time. Which you were playing, the blame game. It's like my brother, he becomes real violent and real this and that, and everybody will just say, you take after your father. Just like that, you take after your father. Hy's net so Robbie soos sy pa. That's how they say it. So you leave it at that, and he gets a son, and that son acts up, and people will say, that son is rubbish like his father. And his father's father. So it's now the third generation where everybody is rubbishes. And only in the late, I would say 90s, they came up with this, oh no, he's acting up because he's got depression. That one is acting up because of the ADH something, that word. And that one is, you know, there's names for, and it gets treated. Yeah. It gets treated. So if we, now okay, my father didn't get this treatment because he didn't need this treatment, let me put it right, because he wasn't like that, you know. Circumstances really messed him up, you know.
We'll go to a round of questions, and while you start formulating your questions, you can put up your hand, and whoever has the microphone will come to you. Alistair, before we get into that, let me ask you one question. Reflecting on your previous novel, this doesn't have to be like this way. It's a dystopian science fiction, but looks at the future of systems collapse in the child. It is about a couple considering adoption. Your thoughts on the uncertain future of millennial parents, you and I now in our late 30s, early 40s. Your thoughts on the responsibility of raising a young family or considering enlarging a family in a world that is so uncertain?
Trying to formulate an answer that's not a total bummer. I do think we're in for a very rocky road with climate change. So my first book was a climate change dystopia. And there's a child character in that as well, actually. There's a little boy growing up in this hellscape. So it's a difficult one. I don't think I have the answers. I think novels are better at asking questions than they are at giving answers. It's something that the couple in this book are grappling with. Just trying, I think what they're really trying to do is find a sense of hope. I think in terms of South Africa's social problems, which a lot of them are still so persistent, and in terms of climate change and the fact that not enough is being done to avert some of the worst case scenarios. But I think a future in which people are not having kids is also quite dystopian and quite depressing. So I think love is kind of one of the only things we have left that still can unite us and that can still give us meaning and still give us hope. And it's one of the things that makes us human. So I think if we're choosing to love a child, I think that's one of the most revolutionary things we can do.
It's a nice way to go into questions from our audience members. If you have a question, you may put up your hand. There is a microphone there. In the meantime, if you are still formulating a question, Charmaine, how do we deal with our trauma? You're meeting you for the first time. I'm loving your sense of life and your sense of humor. But also, reading Amma, there's a sense of humor in your family. Why is it that in my extended family, the most dysfunctional always from the outside seem the most fun because everyone's laughing at each other's jokes? Why is humor the coping mechanism in your growing up in Bishop Lavis?
Yeah, I think humor softens the harshness of your situation. Humor softens it. And it also makes you forget. And the struggle was real, and the struggle was huge, and it was, oh. So what we do, we got it from my mother. She would, tonight my father will throw the whole house through the window, and children screaming and this and that, and we need to move. Oh, change the address, like I'll sleep there by the neighbor and all that. And tomorrow we will get together and my mom will sit with us and we'll talk about it and we will laugh our asses off. And because she's looking for the funny in it, to make it better. She's telling us, and we also see it. Okay, today I'm thinking, wasn't funny. But at that time, the funny in it made it bearable. That's it.
I love how your mom did that for you guys, because it sort of lightened your hearts as
That's
well.
right, yeah.
Question.
That actually leads me quite nicely into my question, which is about healing. I think all of your books have spoken a lot about different forms of trauma, emotional, physical, deep-seated kind of family-based trauma, and especially about trauma that we end up perpetuating through generations. And Alistair, you hinted at the fact that healing is the way to break that cycle. So maybe you guys can all just reflect a bit on healing and what does that mean and how does that flip the narrative, if at all.
Thanks, that's a beautiful question. I hope I have something interesting to say about healing. I think I think we owe it to not only so I think one of the things is that there's a lot of therapy in this book, and the character goes through therapy, and I put some of these therapy sessions in the book. And one of the criticisms that's sometimes leveled at therapy is that it's very self-indulgent. But I actually think that healing ourselves is not only do we owe it to ourselves, but we owe it to the society around us and to our families, so that we can undo some of this damage. And it helps that journey. It's hard and it's dark and trying to face those parts of yourself that you've been avoiding, but that's the only way you truly get to know yourself as well. And I think it really then helps with your relationships. You're able to love your partner better in a more understanding way. You can understand where they're coming from. You will become a better parent. So I think that is the journey that we should all be trying to be on.
My healing journey started when I decided to write my father a letter, my late father, write him a letter and tell him how fucked up he was and how in all of that he also broke us as well. I was brutal. I chopped him into pieces, and I saw at him. That healed me. It was painful. I was crying, but it healed me, and I had to burn that letter, and that also gave me a hug, and also talking to my mom about her experience and asking questions. Why didn't you leave? Why did you allow this to happen? And her answers also helped me to heal and also to understand my father better. So nowadays I say, maybe it was alcohol, because of how my mother helped me to to forgive her husband, because she forgave him first before I could start forgiving him. We once went to his grave, and when we got there, she was like, "Yo, let me you." I don't know how to say it in English, but you take a piece of some soil or sand and just say your goodbyes or pay your respects. She did that, and seeing her doing it felt precious. I felt special in my heart, and I was like, who am I to not forgive? And the abuse did not happen to me. My father, as much it affected my upbringing, but my father didn't beat me up. He was very loving and protective towards us. And he tried his best to be there. And I am very now compassionate towards him because of his upbringing and all of that. I love how this journey of writing this book has made me a better person who is willing to forgive and accept that sometimes the sorries that you're looking for, you will not receive them, but they will come within. Yeah, thank you.
Charmaine?
Yeah. If you had to ask me way back, how did you heal? The healing process is this and that and the other. I would have said, what? No, I don't need healing. I never knew I needed healing. But I went around as the healer for my brothers and my sisters because I knew they need healing because they are so different from me. They're doing things so wrong, and I thought I'm the healer. I'm walking around, I'm telling them this, that, and the other, and blah, blah, blah. And never did I think that I need healing myself. And I can tell you, the moment I started to write this book, I started crying, and such a lot of things. I couldn't get done with the book. I'll start writing full of excitement for a week or so, and I'll start crying for another month because I couldn't put it out there what I want to say. I couldn't put it out there, and because I'm now grown up, I've got wisdom, and I was saying, yes, this was all so wrong. Me too needs healing. So writing this book was my healing. I went through a lot of healing. I felt so light afterwards. You know, like light is the only. I came back to earth when I tried a dress I've got for 20 years, and it's still too small. You know, because of the weight was all gone, and I thought, yes, I lost weight. But that was it.
We have time for one more question and we'll wrap
Yeah,
up.
thank you for this panel. Definitely resonates for me. I was curious to know if, as you were growing up, did you ever imagine what a good father looks like? What is a good father supposed to be? Is it the opposite of the things that your fathers did, or something else? I was just curious if that's an imagining, like what, we talk about the trauma, we talk about this, the bad, but what is a good father supposed to look like? You know, if you
Can
have
I
an
answer
idea.
that for you? Now, I want to answer this one. Now, I always thought that having a father is good and well. Everybody should have a father. I couldn't quite understand why these children are without fathers. What I did not know was there's a difference between a dad and a father. I didn't know that much. My father was around, blah, blah, blah. You know, when I discovered that you actually needed a dad in your life, it's when I was grown, I was working already. And my friend's father dropped her at work, and she kissed this man in front of everybody. I wanted to puke. Oh, what the, you know, WTF. And I said, Alison, when a father said, why did you kiss your father in public, like in public? And she said, don't you do it? And I was standing there, and I didn't have an answer for her, but I was thinking to myself, if I must now kiss this, my drunk father, I've got this picture in my head. I said, no, I don't do it. I'll never do it. She said, then there's something wrong with your relationship. At that time, I was thinking, okay, you carry on kissing daddy and all that blah, blah, and I'll stay away from daddy. You know, stuff like that. Never for a moment did I think that is what she was doing is actually cute. It's nice. It's good. It got to happen, you know? But the one day that really messed me up and made me think and made me, my mother, this was a Sunday, I called the police to fetch my father and lock him up because he's now really showing off. They did that. At that time, they still did it. And I was working in the main road, in Holt Road in Alsace River at this shop. And that was a Monday morning. And it was a liquor Sunday day, and everybody was standing there talking nonsense. The shop wasn't busy, and here this man comes walking down the road, bare feet, without a shirt, and blah, blah, blah. Now, the police station was just past Holt Road. And they started laughing at this man with the bare feet and the blah, blah, blah. Where did he sleep, blah, blah, blah. And I look and I say, it's my father. He was released from the cells, and he was walking past. What am I to do? I can't laugh at my father. I realize I can't laugh at my father. But I also can't tell them this is my father. No, not yet. And at that time there wasn't taxis and stuff and all the blah, blah, but you had to take a bus. And in my heart, I knew I must give him bus fare so we can get out of the road, take a bus home. And I wanted to do this, but not while my friends are standing there, you know. Something is wrong here. I would have done it last week, but after seeing Alison kissing her father, no, it's not going to happen. So they all went into the shop, and I said, I'm going to run to the shop quickly, and I ran down the road, and I said, Tera, vat die taxi, asseblief. Vat die bus, asseblief. Tera, kan ek kom met die pad, Tera, kan nie so like blah, blah, blah. Anyway, that's that. Tonight, I go home. Tera still bare feet, still without his shirt, dik gesyp. You know, he used the money to buy wine. So that is a difference, you know. I should have worked on Tera and not on, but I learned these things from being around people. I never knew they were people who lived a different life than the one that I'm living in, Bishop Lavers, where everybody is doing the same thing. It's fine with everybody. We're good. Be good with who we are. Moving out, meeting new people was an eye-opener for me. I saw that, no, I can better the situation, which I did.
Thobeka, we're running to a hard stop, so I'll have you 60 seconds, 90 seconds if possible. What does it mean, this concept of fatherhood, from you as a mother who's had to fill the dual role yourself? Alistair, what does the writing father mean to you, Thobeka?
Fatherhood means creating a safe space for your children, to be there for them, guide them, protect them, teach them about life, about respect. I wished my father was like my uncles. Men in my family are gentle and loving and polite. He was all of that. Remove alcohol and he would be a good person. I wish fathers wouldn't allow the circumstances that they go through to change them to a point where they now are monsters in the eyes of their children. I wish for fathers who talk about stuff, confront the uncomfortable conversation, and be present, be loving, be protective. So writing about my father made me understand parts of him that I could not understand when I was young. He lost his mom at a very young age, and he was a firstborn. And maybe there were things that were said to him by his father, by the family members, that now you are the man of the house, or you have to take care of your 3 siblings, or you have, as an older son, there is a lot of responsibility. There's a lot of pressure that we put on boys as the society or as the families. I wish moving forward, we can be gentle with boys, evoke their softer side, remind them that it's okay to be soft and to be loving. It's okay to cry. It's okay to admit that you are wrong, and it's okay to say I was wrong, and it's okay to say I don't know. It's okay to say I am not coping. I wish for fathers who, that's my ideal picture of a father.
I mean, that's so beautiful. I don't think I can really add to that. I agree completely with what Thobeka is saying. I think a lot of the problems with fathers come from the way we raise boys, and teaching little boys that they're not allowed to feel their feelings. They've got to always be strong. So allowing boys to be soft and to cry, and that there are emotions aside from anger, because I think anger is all that's left when you raise boys, to think that they can't express their feelings. The only acceptable emotion that's left is anger. So I think it starts there. And I've tried in writing fatherhood in this book to delve into some of the ways in which you can be damaged by your father, but also to try and model some ways of raising in a caring, loving way that's not doesn't take anything away from the kid.
My parting shot is how I enjoyed delving into the world of fiction, but also knowing you tangentially and knowing a little bit of your story as well, Alistair, and going into the stories of Thobeka, going into a story which, in terms of our culture and our place and similar communities where I grew up in, Charmaine, just getting into that mirror of seeing a community and a family structure is very, very close to mine. But in my closing thought in how we started this conversation, I'm in the process of forgiving my parents for transposing their fucked upness on me, and I'm trying my darndest not to do that with mine. The best thing ever happened to me a couple of weeks ago. This thing on my arm was part of a market day. Zoe is my daughter's name, and she tied it on my hand, and I couldn't get it off. And I did not want to show her I was going to cut off, so I've had this on my arm for probably 6 weeks now. And earlier this week, she bathing her, and she said, "I love that you still have this on." And for me, that just filled me with so much joy and hope and love for future, that generational curses can stop with us. But Thobeka, Charmaine, thank you so much. Really appreciate this conversation. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen.